Hello and welcome. My name is Elle at Sonoma Ridge Apartments in Atlanta, Georgia. I am one of the resident educators for TI Communities, and I want to welcome you to another presentation of enrichment programming presented by TI Communities. Thank you so much for spending some of your time here with me today. Today is the second day of Black History Month. We celebrate Black History Month in February, where we pay tribute to all of the important contributions made by African Americans to society at large. As one of the resident educators here, of course, education is very important. And the person we're going to learn about today, Miss Ruby Bridges, was very instrumental in making sure that all children, no matter what their color or where they lived, were able to go to school and learn. Now, before I go any further with my presentation, a little housekeeping. Again, I am Elle. I'm here at Sonoma Ridge in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, you may be somewhere else, and that's okay. I'd still love to hear feedback from anyone who views my programming. TI Communities also would like your feedback, and there is this tiny URL right here, which I am going to post as a comment for you to leave any feedback once you have a chance to view this presentation. If you have any questions about this presentation, you can also email me at sreducatorlatrice at ticommunities.com. All right, so Ruby the Brave is the title of what we'll be learning about today. We will be looking at a couple of videos, and I'll also be reading you some facts and information about her. We'll also be doing a lesson on Nearpod. And if you go to nearpod.com, you'll see a screen like this. And if you are joining me live, you can join too. The code is the letter Z, like zebra, the number 4, the number 3, the letter U, and the letter X. And that will allow you to join me live. Now, if you are not viewing this as a live presentation, that's totally okay. You're able to stop the lesson at any time and answer any questions on your own. So I'm going to click the blue. It's going to ask me for my name. I'm Elle, and I'm going to click join. Okay, so again, for those of you who may be joining me live, the code is the letter Z, like zebra, the number 4, the number 3, the letter U, like unicorn, and the letter X, like X-ray. All right, well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So, the first thing I want to do is kind of give you background as to what was happening in the world at the time that Miss Little Ruby Bridges um, was going through this um, experience in her life. So, who was Ruby? Well, this is her story. Ruby was in first grade. She went to a school for African American children. There was a school closer to her home, but it was only for white children. Now, back then, white children and African American children couldn't go to school together in many places. That's right, I said couldn't go. But in 1960, a judge said that all children could go to school together. Ruby could now go to the school near her home. But Ruby was all alone. She was the only African American child in her school. Many people were angry. They stood outside the school. They yelled at Ruby. Many white parents even took their children out of school. In fact, it was so dangerous for Ruby that the President of the United States sent guards to walk Ruby to school to keep her safe. Ruby was also put into a class all by herself. Her teacher was Mrs. Henry. She taught Ruby all alone. That made Ruby really lonely. Can you imagine not being able to interact with any other kids while you're in school every day? But the next year, Ruby started second grade and she walked into her new class, and the room was full of white and African American children. And that's because of Brave Ruby. So here are some images here. It shows Ruby and her friends. It shows people who were screaming and yelling at Ruby as she walked into school. And here you see a small little girl, a first grader, being walked into her school by guards. Can you imagine how terrified she must have been? Ruby the author. When Ruby grew up, she knew she had a story to tell. She wrote 2 books for children about her life. She tells what it was like to go to school all alone. She tells what it was like to have people yelling at her. And she tells what it was like to have helped change schools forever. So here's a picture of Ruby Bridges, all grown up, reading her book to children in schools. All right, so next up, we are going to look at a couple of short video clips, which, I'll get my sound together over here. Okay, so Ruby Bridges was a part of all of this. You may have heard of a couple of vocabulary words. The first one was a judge. This is someone who listens to cases in courts and decides on important things such as whether a law should be changed. And a judge did decide that these laws needed to be changed. Our other word we had was guards. Guards are people who protect other people or things to keep them safe. Guards kept Ruby Bridges safe. So now that we have some background information, we're going to head on over to our main lesson for the day, which again comes from Nearpod. If you're joining me live, that code is Z, like zebra, 4, 3, U, and X. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we've already talked a little bit about what was happening in the world at that time. In the 1960s, laws were not the same for Black people and white people. Black people were treated as less than white people and separated from them in everyday social settings, including schools. However, in 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation of students based on race was unconstitutional and that schools would be required to integrate. So let's get ready to watch a vocabulary video about Ruby Bridges and her bravery. Now, as you watch, take note of the ways segregation affected everyday life and imagine how it must have felt to be in Ruby Bridges' shoes. Okay, so we've heard some terms, and let's see if we can match those up. So Ruby attended a school named William France Elementary School, and there they had these really tough tests, and if kids didn't pass them, they wouldn't let you in. But Ruby, she passed, and so they had to let her in. So here is a picture of William France Elementary School that Ruby integrated in the 1960s. Now, I just used the word integrate, integration. Integration is simply everyone being together. No one is put apart or separated. And that looks like this picture here. Now, Ruby was able to integrate because the Supreme Court said that it was unconstitutional, which means it violates all rights of people born in America under our United States Constitution. They are the highest court in the land, and what they say is law. They said that segregation, the practice of separating people by color, by race, by skin, was unconstitutional and against the law. So no more whites only water fountains, no more whites only restaurants, no more black people can only sit on the back of the bus. All of those things were taken away with the civil rights movement and the Supreme Court's decision. And Ruby was a big part of that. All right, so let's do a little bit of practice together about what we are learning. Now, remember, President Eisenhower actually sent guards to pick up Ruby from her house and escort her to school because he knew many white Americans were not in favor of integration and wanted to stop it. When Ruby arrived at school that first day, and many other days, there were large mobs of angry white people screaming and shouting. However, Ruby looked brave and confident as she walked into the school. How would you feel? Do you think she felt as confident as she looked? So, on the next slide, we're going to take a virtual trip to a school in the Philippines. And as we look at this image, how would you feel if you were greeted by the students at this school? And looking at the expressions on their faces, do you think you would feel welcome? So, let's take a look at some virtual reality here. So here are some students in the Philippines, and they are waiting on you to put on your VR virtual reality glasses. Now, what I notice about the students here, they're all wearing name tags. That usually means people want you to know who they are, right? All wearing name tags. And almost all of them are wearing something else. Can you guess what it is? If you're saying a smile, you are correct. I would feel very welcomed to go and visit these students in the Philippines. They don't look like they would shout angry things at me or not want me to attend their school. What do you think? So let's see what we know. We had some words about Ruby Bridges' characteristics and how they helped change society. And there's this thing called a heart collage. Okay, notice that it's made up of different words. Some of them are bigger than others. The bigger the word, the more that it's used. And you can actually create your own heart collage by using some of these words here in the word bank, like courage, determination, perseverance, bravery, bold, hero, confident, and compassion. And Ruby exhibited all of these traits and many more. Excuse me. All right. Well, the next thing we have is just a quick quiz. to show what we know. So, true or false? When the United States Supreme Court ruled that segregation was bad, segregation ended everywhere. Do you think that's true or false? I'm going to say, hmm, I'm going to say that's true. Question number two. Even though the Supreme Court ruled that all schools should be integrated, how did people keep Black children from attending William Frantz Elementary School? Did they require all children to be at least 15 years old? They welcomed all children to attend the school. They moved their school to a different building in another county. Or they gave only Black children a hard test that they had to pass in order to attend. They definitely gave them a really hard test. But we know Ruby the Brave passed that test. Good for her. Now, what happened when Ruby attended her first day of school? Select all that apply. A. The U.S. president sent guards to keep Ruby safe from the angry mob outside the school. That definitely happened. Ruby was the only student in her class because all of the other students had been taken out of class by their parents. Sadly enough, that is definitely true. Ruby gave up because she was scared and went back home. Oh no, we know she's not called Ruby the Brave for anything. And lastly, Ruby's teacher was kind and welcomed her as a student. She absolutely did. She was Ruby's only friend for the first year, Mrs. Henry. All right, submitting my answers. And let's see how I did. Oh no, I missed one. I was really, I know which one it is. It did not end segregation everywhere. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court ruling did not end segregation everywhere. That's why you should always follow your mind, boys and girls, your first mind, because my first mind was definitely to say no. And lastly, here's our poll question. How confident are you in your ability to explain who Ruby Bridges is and the lasting legacy of her actions? Do you feel green, very confident, yellow, somewhat confident, or red, not at all confident? I feel very confident in me and in you to be able to explain to others who Ruby Bridges is, why she's so important, and how her lasting legacy has helped us all. Well, I want to thank you again for spending some time here with me, learning about this famous and important Black American, Miss Ruby Bridges the Brave. I hope that you are brave and that you follow your dreams and don't give up on them no matter what someone tells you. Thank you so much again for being here. I would again love to have your feedback, and it's a tiny URL, https:// tinyurl.com/LSR. And again, that will take you right to our survey. Please fill that out. We love to have feedback about our current programming as well as suggestions for programming you'd like to see in the future. Until next time, please stay safe, please stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.